Hi everybody, and welcome to Once Upon a Scarf. This channel celebrates the art of the vintage scarf, from luxury silks to bandanas, and takes a deep dive into the wonderful stories they tell. I'm the author of 2 classic books on vintage fashion, Secondhand Chic and It's Vintage Darling. Today, we're looking at a wonderful Hermes silk square that I was fortunate enough to be able to buy at the Faubourg Saint-Honoré store in Paris almost 30 years ago. Because it comes from Hermes Ground Zero, I use it as a benchmark for quality, weight, and workmanship, especially if I'm considering buying a comparable scarf from the second-hand market. I'll talk a little bit more about the quality later. Today, we're taking a deeper focus on design, especially how Hermes's design history plays into how the images in this scarf came to be. To take a quick look, we see a ring of colorful shield-like motifs surrounded by a gold fringe. There are tassels hanging from intricate knots, and in the corners what look like epaulettes. The vibe is vaguely military. So what's the real story here? To answer that, we'll have to go back in time to Paris in 1937. This is Émile Maurice Hermes, who is the grandson of the house's founder. He was a very smart businessman and wanted to expand their line of wares from saddles and luggage to clothes, watches, and jewelry. Émile was a passionate collector, especially of military items and regalia, and very especially items connected to Napoleon. He and the emperor shared an interest in items that brought together great beauty and great functionality. Light, fit to purpose, and wearable, whether on a long campaign in Russia or on a long holiday on the Riviera. Inspired by the tradition of a soldier's neckerchief, in 1937, Émile invented the silk carré as an elegant accessory for women. Fast forward to 1986. Our scarf here is by the artist Joachim Metz. It's called Poste et Cavalerie, Post and Cavalry, and it proudly displays the Napoleonic military bling that Émile Hermes so adored. Front and center are these shield-shaped objects. I'll bet you can't guess what they actually are. Wait for it. They're pockets. Probably the poshest pockets ever created. They are officially known as sabretache, which means saber bag. Back when they were worn, from the 17th century through to World War I, there were no pockets on military uniforms. An officer would wear one of these suspended from a belt attached to his saber. You can see the attaching rings right here. They held military orders and dispatches, maps, and other necessities for life on campaign. Sabretache were especially associated with the mounted light cavalry of all nations. Back in the day, these soldiers dashed on horseback in and out of enemy lines, wreaking havoc. And they were literally dashing, wearing huge mustaches and pulling stunts like sabrage, or cutting the neck of a champagne bottle with their sabers. As far as dress goes, they totally looked the part, unbelievably blinged out on ceremonial occasions with braided embroidery, medals, and regalia. The sabretache was part of that display. It had become an art form in itself, embroidered in gold and lace, carrying mottos with royal or regimental crests. There were also plainer working versions for daily life. Here's an especially goth one from a British regiment. But the ones on our scarf are very fancy indeed. But our scarf is not just about pockets. Playing a supporting role are epaulettes, knots, and tassels, all of which would have been found on a military dress uniform. Epaulettes were originally created to keep straps from sliding off shoulders. They can be incredibly fancy, made of gold wire braid, and very expensive. They were also used to display rank. Here's a U.S. Navy coat from 1862, worn by an officer in the medical service. If you get out a measuring stick, you'll find that the length of the braid is precisely 2.5 inches, meaning this coat was owned by an assistant surgeon. Back again at our scarf, let's take a moment for a closer look to admire the craftsmanship of Joachim Metz's design. Honestly, it's insane. Each individual line in this trim was hand-drawn. It's a celebration of the opulent status of the original decorations. You can almost imagine Emile Hermes dreaming, "I'll see your cabinets and trophies in Horse Guards Napoleon, and I'll raise you this incredible silk scarf." So who knew a beautiful Hermes scarf had such deep connections to military history, just as Emile Hermes intended? Admirers of old sabretache proudly display them in museum cases. We can wear them on our shoulders. And if war isn't your bag, you don't need to support battles, empire, or emblems of rank to admire the silk square. As always with Hermes, the craftsmanship is its own justification. That's today's scarf story. I hope you enjoyed it. Please press the usual buttons if you'd like to see more.